Princess sat in her private chambers, staring at the old book in her hands. The pages were yellow with age, filled with stories her grandmother used to tell her when she was a child. Stories about the ghost warriors, stories about humans. They could survive anything, her grandmother had whispered in the darkness. Fire, ice, poison, air. They adapted to every world, and when you thought you had killed one, he would get back up and keep fighting. Had loved those stories once. Now, at 24 years old, she knew they were just fairy tales. Humans were extinct, if they had ever existed at all. The Great Silence War had happened 300 years ago, and no one had seen a human since. Most scholars in the Empire believed they were myths created to frighten children. She closed the book and looked out her window at the capital city below. The towers of Prime stretched toward the purple sky, beautiful and cold. This was her home, but lately it felt like a prison. Her father, Emperor, ruled the empire with absolute power. He was not a kind ruler, had watched him destroy entire species who refused to bow to authority. The most recent victims were a peaceful people who now worked in labor camps across the empire. Could not watch anymore. She had tried to help them. 3 nights ago, she had smuggled medical supplies to a group of refugees hiding in the lower city. Someone had betrayed her. Her father's soldiers had caught her. The door to her chambers opened. 2 guards entered, followed by her father. Emperor was tall and broad, his scales dark green and polished to shine. His eyes were cold as he looked at his daughter. "You have embarrassed me," he said quietly. Quiet was more dangerous than shouting with her father. "They are dying in those camps," said. "Someone had to help them." "They are slaves, property of the empire. You do not help property, you use it. They are people, living beings who deserve." Her father's hand moved faster than she could see. The blow knocked her to the floor. Her cheek burned where his claws had scraped her skin. "You will learn your place," said, "but not here. Not where you can continue to shame me." He nodded to the guards. "Take her to Threshold Station. She is exiled. No title, no protection, no resources. Let her learn what the real galaxy is like." Felt her blood turn cold. Threshold Station was a nightmare place on the edge of space. Pirates, criminals, and outcasts lived there. No law, no order. People disappeared in places like that. "Father, please. You are no longer my daughter. Guards, remove her." The guards dragged her out. Within hours, she was on a transport ship heading to the frontier. She had no servants, no money, nothing but the simple clothes she wore. The princess was gone. Now she was just alone and afraid. Threshold Station was worse than she had imagined. The moment she stepped off the transport, the smell hit her. Rust, chemicals, and something rotting. The station was old, its metal walls covered in graffiti and rust. Aliens of every species crowded the corridors, most of them armed. Tried to keep her head down. She had cut her decorative head fins short and wore a hood to hide her face, but she knew it would not be enough. Princesses had distinctive markings. Someone would recognize her eventually. She was right. On her 3rd day, 4 bounty hunters cornered her in a dead-end corridor. There were huge creatures, covered in thick armor plates and armed with plasma rifles. "Well, well," the leader said, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "The lost princess. Lord is offering a very nice reward for you. Dead or alive, he does not care which." Backed against the wall, she had no weapons, no training. She was going to die here. Then someone stepped between her and He was small compared to the bipedal, like a but with no scales. His skin was smooth and tan, his hair dark. He wore simple worker's clothes and carried nothing but a small tool bag. "This corridor is closed for maintenance," the stranger said calmly. The leader laughed. "Move, little thing, or die with her." The stranger tilted his head slightly. "You really don't want to do this." "And why not?" "Because you'll regret it." The raised his rifle. What happened next took less than 5 seconds. The stranger moved. Not fast like an enhanced soldier or a predator, just efficient. He grabbed the rifle barrel, twisted it at an angle that was not expecting, and used the creature's own momentum to slam him into the wall. The rifle discharged into the ceiling. The stranger had already moved to the second, using a tool from his bag to short-circuit the bounty hunter's armor. The third and fourth tried to rush him at once, but he dropped low, swept one's legs, and drove his elbow into the other's weak point under its mandible. In 5 seconds, 4 armed bounty hunters were on the ground, groaning or unconscious. The stranger turned too. His eyes were dark and tired. "You should not be here alone," he said. What are you?" whispered. "My name is I haul cargo. Come on, they will wake up soon." He led her through the maze of corridors to a small docking bay. His ship was old and battered, nothing like the elegant vessels, but it looked safe. Inside finally found her voice. "You moved like the ghost warriors from the old stories." Paused while making tea. "Ghost warriors." "Humans, the ones who fought in the Great Silence War, but that's impossible. Humans are extinct. They are just legends." Set a cup in front of her. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, "I am human." Laughed. It was not a happy laugh. Everything that had happened, all the fear and exhaustion came out in that laugh. "Sure you are, and I am still a princess." "You are a princess," said. "Princess of the Empire. I recognized you immediately. Your face is on every wanted board on the station." Slaff died. "How did you know?" "I pay attention. It keeps me alive." He sat down across from her. "You can stay here until you figure out your next move, but keep your head down. This place is dangerous." "Why are you helping me?" Looked away. "Because no one helped me once, and I remember what that felt like." Studied him. His face was plain, his manner calm. He did not look like a warrior. He did not look like anything special, but she had seen him move. She had seen him fight. Maybe humans were not extinct after all. Maybe the legends were real. And maybe, just maybe, she had found the one person in the entire galaxy who could help her survive. Had been living on ship for 6 days, and she still could not figure him out. He was polite but distant. He worked odd jobs around the station, hauling cargo, fixing equipment, sometimes translating for merchants who spoke rare languages. He seemed to know everyone but was friends with no one. He moved through Threshold Station like a ghost. But watched him. She had nothing else to do while hiding, so she watched. Never sat with his back to a door. He always checked his exits before entering a room. When he slept, it was in short periods, never more than 2 hours at a time. His eyes were always moving, always scanning, always aware. These were not the habits of a cargo hauler. These were the habits of a soldier. "You were in a war," said one morning while they ate breakfast. Paused with his spoon halfway to his mouth. "What makes you say that?" "The way you move, the way you think. My father's soldiers are the same, always watching, always ready." "I was in some conflicts, long time ago." "What kind of conflicts?" "The kind you do not talk about." Wanted to push, but something in his voice stopped her. There was pain there, buried deep. She changed the subject. But that afternoon, everything changed. The station's alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Ran to the docking bay window and felt her blood freeze. Warships, dozens of them, surrounding the station. They bore the symbol of the warlord, the same one who had put the bounty on her head. Appeared beside her, his face grim. "They are blocking all exits. No one leaves." "This is because of me," whispered. "He wants me badly enough to siege the entire station." "Looks like it." "I should surrender. I cannot let innocent people die because—" "No," his voice was hard. "You are not going anywhere." "But—" "Listen to me." He turned to face her, and for the first time she saw something dangerous in his eyes. "Is not going to negotiate. He is going to take you and kill everyone anyway. That is how people like him work. If you surrender, you just die faster." "Then what do we do?" Was quiet for a moment. Then he moved to a hidden panel in his ship's wall and pulled out a case. Inside were weapons. Old weapons, human weapons from the look of them. He checked each one with practiced efficiency. "We prepare," he said simply. Over the next hour, watched transform his small ship into a fortress. He knew exactly where to place barriers, where to create, where to set traps. He moved with absolute certainty, like he had done this 1,000 times before. "How many soldiers do you think we'll send?" asked. "First wave, probably a squad, 6 to 8 fighters. He will want to test our defenses." "Against 2 people, that seems like overkill." "He knows I am here," the eye knocked out told him. "So?" "Loaded a weapon and checked its sights, so he is being careful." The first soldiers came 2 hours later. Heard them cutting through the docking bay door. She had hidden where told her to hide, behind reinforced cargo containers. She could see everything but was protected. The door fell open. 6 soldiers entered in tight formation, plasma rifles raised. They were armored and alert, professional killers. Stood in the center of the bay, hands empty, looking small and harmless. "Last chance," the squad leader called out. "Give us the princess and you live." "No," said. They opened fire. Moved, but this time truly saw what he could do. He had already mapped every angle, every shadow, every piece of cover. As the plasma bolts flew, he was somewhere else. A trap triggered and one soldier went down, caught in an electrical net. Came up behind another, too close for the rifle to be useful, and struck at joints in the armor with a small blade. They screamed and fell. The others spread out, trying to corner him, but had designed the space for exactly this. He led them into narrow passages between cargo containers. In the tight space, their numbers meant nothing. Only one could come at him at a time, and he made each one count. He fought with tools, with pieces of the environment, with his own weapons. He was never still. Every movement had a purpose. When he got hit, he used the impact to move into a better position. When he seemed cornered, it was a trap. Watched in amazement and horror. They were stronger, better armed and covered in natural armor, but fought like the space itself was his weapon. He used gravity, leverage, timing. He turned their strength against them. One managed to grab him, lifting him off the ground with one massive arm. Did not struggle. He went limp for half a second, making them think he had won. Then he drove his thumbs into the weak points of the optical sensors. The creature roared and threw him, but rolled with the throw, came up with a dropped rifle and fired. The last standing tried to run. Let him get 3 steps before a carefully thrown tool hit the back of his knee joint, dropping him. Was on him before he could rise, and it was over. Silence fell over the docking bay. 6 soldiers lay unconscious or dead, stood among them, breathing hard but controlled. His face was spattered with alien blood. His clothes were torn, but he was alive. Stepped out from cover on shaking legs. You are really one of them, a ghost warrior, a human." Wiped his face with his sleeve. I tried not to be any more." "What does that mean?" He looked at her with those tired eyes. "It means I left that life behind, or tried to, but it seems it is not done with me yet. My grandmother's stories, they were all true. The adaptability, the persistence, the way you fight, everything. Stories tend to exaggerate. I just watched you defeat 6 trained soldiers alone. That was not an exaggeration. Started checking the docking bay door. That was just the first wave. We'll send more now. Probably 20 soldiers next time, maybe 30. We need to leave. Can we get past the blockade?" "No, but I know someone who might help us. If she is still alive, if she still remembers me." He moved to his ship's communication console and sent out a coded message. Then they waited. 15 minutes later, a response came back. A single set of coordinates. "Who did you contact?" asked. "Someone from my old life, someone I trust." Can she really help us? Started the ship's engines. If anyone can get us out of here alive, it is. Is she human too? Yes. Felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. She had spent her whole life believing humans were legends. Now she was about to meet a second one. As they prepared to launch, alarms screamed again. More soldiers were coming. Worked the controls with quick efficiency, powering up weapons and shields. Hold on, he said. This is going to be rough. The ship burst from the docking bay just as the second wave arrived. Plasma fire lit up the space around them. Flew the ship like he fought, using every angle, every bit of cover. They twisted through the station's superstructure, using the metal beams and platforms as shields. They are following us, shouted. Good, that means they are not thinking about where we are going. Dove the ship toward the station's lower levels, into the older sections where the metal was rusted and unstable. He killed the engines and let them drift into the shadows, their ship's signature hidden among the debris. They waited. Above them, fighters searched, but in the maze of old metal, they could not find one small ship. After an hour, carefully powered the engines back up and began moving through the debris field, slow and quiet. They slipped through a waste disposal port and out into open space. Behind them, Threshold Station grew smaller. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness, was. And maybe, thought, some answers about the mysterious humans who were supposed to be extinct. They flew for 3 days through empty space, following coordinates that changed every few hours. Explained this was standard procedure. Never go straight to a safe house. Always check if you are being followed. During those long hours, finally got to talk about his past. I was part of the Human Expeditionary Corps, he said quietly, staring out at the stars. We were soldiers, explorers, diplomats, whatever humanity needed us to be. When was this? 300 years ago, give or take. Stared at him. That is impossible, you would be ancient. We spent most of those centuries frozen, only woke up when necessary. He smiled sadly. Time moves differently when you are not really living it. Tell me about the war, the Great Silence War. Was quiet for a long time. Thought he might refuse. Then he started talking, and once he started, the words seemed to pour out like he had been holding them in for centuries. It was not supposed to be our fight, he said. We were new to the galactic community. Only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years. We were exploring, making friends, learning. Then the Devourers came. I have heard of them, a species. They consumed entire worlds. Consumed is a gentle word for what they did. They did not just kill, they absorbed. Every living thing on a planet became part of their collective mind. Billions of voices screaming in eternal hunger. Hands tightened on the controls. The Empire asked humanity for help. Your people were strong, but the Devourers kept coming. So we came. We fought. My grandmother said humans were unstoppable in battle. We were effective, not because we were stronger, we were not because we were smarter. Many species were smarter, but we had something others did not. He looked at. We did not know when to quit. When a battle was lost, we kept fighting. When odds were impossible, we found ways to make them possible. The Devourers could not predict us because our tactics did not make logical sense. Like what? We would rig entire space stations to explode just to take out a Devourer fleet. We would fight in environments that should kill us, adapt on the move. One time, my unit held a position for 72 hours with no sleep, no supplies, and 3/4 casualties. We won because the Devourers could not understand why we did not retreat. His voice dropped. They thought we were broken, defective. Maybe we were. You won the war, though. The Devourers were destroyed. Yes, we won, and your people feared us for it. Felt cold? What do you mean? Think about it. They are a proud warrior species. You value strength, honor, tactical superiority. Then you meet humans who win battles through stubbornness and insane risk-taking. We made the military look inefficient. Your leaders started asking questions. If humans were this dangerous as allies, what would happen if we became enemies? So they betrayed you. At the Battle of Crimson Nebula, the final push against the Devourer home clusters, the fleet was supposed to support us. Instead, they jumped away and left us surrounded. 6,000 human soldiers. I was one of maybe 30 who escaped. That is murder. That is politics. His voice was bitter. After the battle, humanity sealed our home systems behind a quantum barrier. No one in, no one out. We went silent. The galaxy assumed we were extinct. That was fine with us. We were done with galactic politics. But you did not go home. Could not. I was too far away when the barrier went up, so were a few thousand others. We scattered across the galaxy, changed our names, tried to forget. He laughed without humor. Turns out you cannot forget something like that. The navigation console beeped. They had reached the final coordinates. Brought the ship toward what looked like an ordinary asteroid. But as they got closer, saw hidden doors open in the rock. They flew into a concealed hangar carved inside the asteroid itself. The hangar was surprisingly large and well-equipped. Several ships were docked there, all of them old but maintained. People moved between them, doing repairs and loading cargo. All of them were human. A woman approached as they exited the ship. She was tall for a human, her hair cut short, her eyes sharp. She wore practical military-style clothing and carried herself like a soldier. She said, "I honestly thought you were dead. Sorry to disappoint you." She smiled slightly, then looked at, "Princess of the Empire, you have become quite famous. Half the galaxy is looking for you." "How many humans live here?" asked, looking around. "Here about 40 in total across the galaxy, maybe 3,000. We keep track of each other, help when we can," gestured for them to follow. "Come, we have much to discuss." She led them through corridors carved into the asteroid rock. They passed living quarters, storage areas, even a small medical bay. Saw more humans, all of them doing various tasks. Some stopped to stare at her, but none seemed hostile. They entered a command center filled with displays and communication equipment. 2 other humans were there. Introduced them. "This is our chief engineer, and that is who runs our medical operations." Was young and energetic, constantly fiddling with some piece of technology. Was older, with kind eyes and hands that suggested he had seen many battles. Said warmly, "It has been too long." They embraced briefly. Felt like she was watching old soldiers reunite after years apart, which she realized was exactly what this was. Pulled up a holographic display showing Threshold Station. Has locked down the entire sector. He is specifically looking for you, Princess. The question is why? Ransom said, "My father would pay well to get me back or to have me killed. Either way profits." Actually, it is more complicated than that. Pulled up more data. Is negotiating with your father for mining rights in territory, but they are resisting. If delivers you, he gets military support to crush the resistance. Felt sick. My capture would lead to more deaths. Thousands of them, confirmed. But here is the interesting part. Your father is committing atrocities across the Empire, but the Galactic Council does nothing. Why? Because they fear him, said. The military is the strongest force in this sector. Yes, but more importantly, they have no proof. Your father is very careful. All evidence of his war crimes is kept in one place, the Imperial Archives on Prime. Understood where this was going. You want to steal the evidence. Not steal, expose. Broadcast it to the entire Galactic Council. Looked at each of them. If we can prove what Emperor has done, the Council will have no choice but to act. The Empire will fracture. The other oppressed species will have a chance at freedom. That is impossible, said. The Imperial Archives are in the most secure building on Prime, my father's personal fortress. Which is why we need you, spoke up. You grew up in that fortress. You know the layout, the security, the weak points. Even if I did help, we are talking about a handful of humans against the entire Imperial Guard. That is suicide. Probably, agreed. But it is the right thing to do, and if there is one thing humans are good at, it is attempting impossible things. Looked at, you agree with this insanity. He was quiet for a moment. I spent 300 years running, hiding, trying to forget what I was. Maybe it is time to remember. Maybe it is time to do something that matters. Placed a hand on shoulder. No one is forcing you, princess. You have already lost everything because you tried to help we will not ask you to lose more. But thought about the refugees she had tried to save. She thought about all the species her father had destroyed. She thought about what her grandmother would say if she were here. When do we leave? She asked. Smiled. That is the spirit. We leave in 2 days. That gives us time to plan and prepare. You will handle infiltration. You will be our guide. You are with me on extraction. Stays here to coordinate. One question, said. You keep saying we need to do the right thing, that this matters, but humanity sealed itself away. You chose to leave the galaxy behind. Why help now? The room was quiet, finally spoke. Because we did not leave by choice. We left because we were betrayed by people we trusted, by an empire we helped save. He looked at, but you are different. You were willing to lose everything to help people who had no power. That means something. That means maybe not all of thee are like your father. We help you, added, because it is what humans do. We see something broken and we try to fix it, even when it is stupid, especially when it is stupid. Smiled despite herself. These strange, stubborn, impossible humans. Maybe the legends were right after all. The plan was insane. Said this at least 20 times during the 2 days of preparation. Nobody disagreed with her. They would pose as maintenance contractors hired to upgrade the palace security systems. Had forged the credentials, making them look legitimate in the Imperial databases. Had built devices to mask their biological signatures, making the humans read as common workers on scanners. This will work for maybe 4 hours, explained. After that, deep scans will see through the masks. You need to be in and out before then. The team was small, for his combat skills and infiltration experience, for her knowledge of the palace, for her technical expertise, and because someone needed to get them out alive if things went wrong. Things will definitely go wrong, said calmly. They always do. We just need to adapt faster than our enemies. They arrived at Prime 3 days later, using a borrowed cargo ship registered to a legitimate company. The planet was beautiful from space, its oceans deep purple and its land masses covered in silver vegetation. Had not realized how much she missed home until she saw it again. The orbital checkpoints scanned their ship. The forged credentials held. They were cleared to land at a commercial spaceport 20 kilometers from the Imperial Palace. His heart pounded as they entered the city. She had grown up here. She knew these streets. But now she was a criminal returning to steal from her own father. They transferred to a ground transport and approached the palace. The building rose from the center of the city like a mountain of metal and stone, its walls studded with defensive weapons. Thousands of guards patrolled its grounds. This was Emperor's fortress, the symbol of his power. Last chance to turn back, said quietly. Nobody answered. They all knew there was no turning back. At the palace gates, they presented their maintenance contractor credentials. A guard captain reviewed them with bored efficiency. He looked at twice, but the biological mask and her plain work clothes were enough. He waved them through. They were inside. Led them through service corridors she had played in as a child. The palace was enormous, designed to intimidate visitors with its scale and grandeur, but knew the hidden paths, the shortcuts that servants used. The Imperial archives are in the Eastern Tower, she whispered. 300 levels up. Normally it takes multiple security clearances to access, but there is a maintenance shaft that runs parallel to the main elevator. We can climb it. 300 levels, looked pained. Why is it always climbing? They reached the maintenance shaft and began the long ascent. The humans climbed steadily, their endurance impressive. Struggled more than they did, her physiology not built for this kind of sustained effort. Stayed close to her, ready to help if she fell. It took them 90 minutes to reach the archives level. They emerged in a service room filled with old cleaning equipment. Beyond the door was the archive chamber itself. 2 guards outside, reported, checking through a small camera had placed. Standard Imperial Guard, armed with plasma rifles and body armor. Can you handle them quietly? Asked. Yes. Slipped out, heard a brief scuffle, 2 soft sounds, then silence. Returned and nodded. The way was clear. They entered the archive chamber. It was a vast room filled with data storage units, reaching up into the darkness above. Millions of files, centuries of Imperial history, all stored here. Immediately went to work, connecting her devices to the archive network. I need 20 minutes to find the right files and set up the broadcast. We may not have 20 minutes, said. Start working. Moved through the archives, guiding to the sections dealing with military operations and colonial administration. The files were here. Evidence of 17 species destroyed or enslaved by her father's orders. Evidence of massacres, forced relocations, entire worlds stripped of resources. I found it, said finally. This is enough to convict him 1,000 times over, starting the broadcast now. Alarm screamed. They found us, said, checking the door. Multiple contacts approaching, at least 20 guards. I need 5 more minutes to complete the broadcast, shouted over the alarms. Then we buy you 5 minutes, looked at, ready. Always. They took positions at the door, using the archive storage units as cover. The first Imperial guards burst in, and the humans opened fire with stolen weapons. Watched them fight. These were not the 4 on Threshold Station. These were elite soldiers, the best the Empire had. They had energy shields, powered armor, squad tactics. They should have overwhelmed 2 humans easily. But and fought like they were one mind. They covered each other, anticipated each other's moves, created overlapping fields of fire. When one reloaded, the other suppressed. When one was pinned down, the other flanked. The Imperial guards tried to rush them. Bad idea. The humans had chosen their position perfectly. The guards had to come through a narrow entrance, and the humans picked them off one by one. But more kept coming, and the humans were running out of ammunition. 3 minutes, called out. Then the doors on the opposite side of the archive chamber opened. A figure walked in, flanked by 6 guards in ceremonial armor. Felt her blood freeze. Her brother, Prince. He was tall and broad, his scales polished to a mirror shine. He wore the armor of a war leader, and his eyes fixed on with cold fury. Sister, he said, I always knew you were a traitor, but working with humans, with ghosts, this is pathetic even for you. Please just look at the files. Father has committed horrible crimes. I know what Father has done, smiled. I helped him do it. The weak species deserved their fate. They should have submitted or died fighting. Instead, they begged and cried like children. Stepped forward. If you know, then you know this broadcast will end the Empire. Perhaps, but you will not live to see it. Guards raised their weapons. What happened next was almost too fast to see. Himself attacked. The prince was enhanced, his body modified with military cybernetics that made him incredibly fast and strong. He hit like a cargo truck, sending the human flying into a storage unit. Engaged the ceremonial guards while continued working frantically on the broadcast. Grabbed a fallen rifle, though she barely knew how to use it. Advanced on who was struggling to stand. This is what humans really are, weak, mortal, nothing special at all. He kicked in the ribs, heard bones crack, went down again. You fought the Devourers and won through luck. You were never as dangerous as the legends said, just primitives who got fortunate." Grabbed by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Any last words, Ghost?" Looked at him with those tired eyes. Then he smiled. Blood leaked from his mouth. "You are stronger, faster, better equipped, but you have never had to fight when everything has gone wrong." "What does that?" Grabbed arm with both hands and twisted his own body violently. His shoulder dislocated with an audible pop, but the movement gave him the leverage he needed to slip the grip. He fell, rolled, and came up with a piece of broken metal from the storage unit. Charged at him, confident in his superior strength. Did not try to block. He redirected, using the prince's own momentum. Crashed into another storage unit. Before he could turn around, was on his back, using the metal shard to pry at the connections in his armor. "You think your enhancements make you better," grunted, his dislocated shoulder making every movement agony. "But they make you predictable. You rely on them. I have nothing to rely on except adaptation." Threw himself backward, crushing against the wall, but held on, kept working at the armor joints. Sparks flew. The armor's power system began failing. Without the enhancement boost, was just another strong, and had been fighting creatures stronger than him for centuries. It took 3 more minutes of brutal close-quarters combat. Both of them were bleeding, both exhausted, but in the end stood over his unconscious body. "Broadcast complete," shouted. "Every Galactic Council member just received everything. The evidence is public." The palace shook. Explosions echoed from outside. "What was that?" asked. Checked her scanner and smiled. That was the resistance striking military installations, and, oh, this is interesting. Multiple species are launching simultaneous uprisings across controlled worlds. The broadcast worked. More guards poured into the archive chamber, but these ones hesitated. Some of them had seen the broadcast too. Some of them knew what their emperor had done. Then the far wall exploded inward. Emperor himself entered, surrounded by his personal guard. His eyes found, and the rage there was absolute. "You have destroyed everything," he said quietly. "No," said, finding her voice. "I am fixing what you broke." "Seize them, all of them." The guards advanced and raised their weapons, but they were out of ammunition, injured and exhausted. This was the end. Then something impossible happened. The quantum barrier around human space opened for the first time in 300 years. The palace shook again, harder this time. Everyone froze, even Emperor. Something massive had just entered orbit around Prime. Checked her scanner. Her eyes went wide. "That is impossible." "What's?" demanded. "That is a human ship, a warship. The signature is 300 years old, but it is definitely human." Through the shattered wall they could see it. A massive vessel, its hull from centuries of service, hung in the sky above the capital city. It was larger than any battleship, its weapons powered and ready. A transmission broadcast across all frequencies. A human voice, clear and strong. "This is commander of the Human Defense Force vessel Indomitable. We are here to retrieve our citizens. Any attempt to harm them will be considered an act of war. Stand down immediately." Emperor's face twisted with fury. One ship, one ancient ship against the entire Imperial fleet. They are insane. "That is what we do," said quietly. The palace command center erupted in chaos. Imperial officers shouted orders. Fleet commanders demanded instructions. And all around Prime, the Imperial fleet moved to engage the human ship. 200 warships against one human vessel. The battle lasted 8 minutes. The humans did not fight like the expected. They did not engage in honorable ship-to-ship combat. They did not follow standard tactical doctrine. Instead, the Indomitable moved through the formations like a predator among prey, its weapons firing at angles that should have been impossible. The humans had clearly studied tactics for 3 centuries. They knew every formation, every strategy, every weakness. They exploited all of them. The Indomitable's shields held against incredible firepower. Its weapons tore through armor, and its maneuvers were beyond anything the fleet had seen. The ship moved like it was alive, anticipating every attack, countering every strategy. After 8 minutes, 20 ships were disabled, 50 more were damaged, and the Indomitable had barely taken any hits. The Imperial fleet retreated. Commander's voice filled the silence. "We are deploying extraction teams. If you can hear this, mark your position." Activated her emergency beacon. 5 minutes later, human soldiers burst into the archive chamber. They wore powered armor that looked ancient but functional, and they moved with the same efficient deadliness that had shown. They secured the room in seconds, treating the Imperial guards with professional courtesy but absolute control. A woman entered behind them. She was older, her hair gray but her eyes sharp. Commander herself. She said, "You look terrible." "Good to see you too, Commander." Soldiers helped the injured humans to their feet. Shoulder was badly hurt, could barely stand, was exhausted, but they were alive. "Looked at, you are the princess who started all this." "I am, or I was." "Well, princess, you have quite literally broken an empire today. The Galactic Council has already frozen all assets. Multiple species are declaring independence. Your father's reign is over." Emperor still stood surrounded by his guards, but they were not moving. They had seen the broadcast. They knew the truth. Some of them were crying. "You think you have won," said. "This changes nothing. The will rise again. We are too strong to fall." "No," said, stepping forward. "You are too strong to see your own weakness. You built an empire on fear and oppression. Now it is crumbling and you have no one to blame but yourself. You dare speak to me that way? You are my daughter." "I am not your daughter anymore. I am something you never understood. I am someone who believes that strength comes from helping others, not crushing them." Lunged at her, moved to intercept, but he did not need to. One of the Imperial guards stepped in front of, blocking the Emperor. "No, my lord," the guard said quietly. "This is over." Other guards moved to restrain. He struggled and screamed, but they held him. The Emperor of the Empire was now a prisoner. Gestured to her soldiers. "Take him into custody. The Galactic Council will want him for trial." As the soldiers led away, turned to. "The Council is also requesting your presence. The Empire needs new leadership. Many are calling for you to take the throne." Felt overwhelmed. I am not worthy. I helped cause this disaster." "You helped end a disaster that was already happening," said. He was leaning heavily on for support, his face pale from pain, but his voice was steady. "That is what leaders do. They stand up when everyone else sits down." "But I do not know how to rule an empire." "No one does at first," Commander said. "But you have something your father never had. You have compassion. You have allies. And you have humans who remember that you were willing to risk everything to do what was right." Looked at the humans around her, who had fought through impossible odds to protect her, who had risked her life to expose the truth, who had taken wounds meant for her, and Commander, who had brought humanity back into the galaxy after 300 years of silence. "Will humanity help us?" asked. "Help rebuild what my father destroyed?" Smiled. "That depends. Will they accept our help, or will you make the same mistakes again?" "We will accept. I will make sure of it." "Then yes, humanity will help. We have been isolated long enough. It is time to rejoin the galaxy. Carefully this time, but we will rejoin." Over the next 6 months, everything changed. Emperor and Prince stood trial before the Galactic Council. The evidence was overwhelming. They were sentenced to life imprisonment on a neutral world, guarded by multiple species to ensure justice. Was crowned Empress of what remained of the Empire. but she immediately began dismantling the authoritarian systems her father had built. She freed the and 17 other oppressed species, offering them independence or equal partnership in a new coalition. Many chose to stay, but as free people, not slaves. Humanity cautiously reopened its borders. The quantum barrier came down. Human diplomats led by began negotiating with the Galactic Council. There was fear at first, memories of the ghost warriors, but slowly understanding grew. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also loyal, creative, and stubborn in the pursuit of what they believed was right. The galaxy decided it was better to have humans as friends than as enemies. Remained on Prime. He officially served as military advisor, but unofficially he was her friend, the only person who could understand the weight of responsibility she carried. They stood together one evening in the palace gardens, looking up at the stars. Human ships patrolled alongside vessels now, a sight that would have been impossible a year ago. "Do you regret any of it?" asked. "The fighting, the loss, the centuries of exile." Was quiet for a long time. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret the people who died, but I do not regret fighting for something that mattered. My grandmother used to tell me stories about humans, about the ghost warriors who never gave up. I thought they were just stories to scare children." "They were stories to inspire children," said, "to show them that even when things seem impossible, even when you are smaller and weaker and everyone says you will lose, you can still choose to fight. You can still choose to try." Is that what makes humans special, that stubbornness? Maybe, or maybe it is just a defect in our survival instinct. He smiled. We see a cliff, and instead of backing away, we figure out how to climb it. We see an unwinnable fight, and we ask ourselves what winning really means. We see a galaxy that wants us gone, and we stay anyway just to prove we can. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it is also what makes us human. Looked at the stars, at the ships patrolling, at the future that seemed both terrifying and full of hope. I am glad humans exist. I am glad you exist. Without you, I would have given up. I would have surrendered to my father or to despair. You would have found another way. That is what leaders do. No, said firmly. That is what humans do. You see the impossible and you do it anyway. You taught me that. You taught the entire galaxy that. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the ships pass overhead. Somewhere out there, human vessels were helping rebuild worlds had devastated. Somewhere else, human engineers were teaching other species new technologies. And everywhere, the legend of the ghost warriors was becoming something new. Not a story to frighten children, but a story to remind everyone that giving up was a choice, not a requirement. What now? Asked. Shrugged. Now we rebuild. We make mistakes and fix them. We try to do better than those who came before us. And when things get difficult, when people say it cannot be done, we prove them wrong. That is very human of you. I am human. I tried not to be for a long time, but I think I am done running from what I am. Smiled. Good, because the galaxy needs humans, even when they are stubborn and reckless and impossible to predict, maybe especially then. Above them, a human ship passed close enough for them to see its name painted on the hull. The Persistence. It was a good name. That night issued a decree that would be remembered for generations. She established the Monument of Remembrance in the palace gardens, honoring all species who had suffered under oppression. And at its center, she placed a human battle standard recovered from the Crimson Nebula battlefield. The standard was burned and torn, but the words on it were still readable. We do not quit. 3 words, a simple statement, but also a promise, a threat, and a hope all at once. The galaxy learned that day that humans were not extinct. They had never been extinct. They had simply been waiting, watching, preparing. And now they were back. Not as conquerors or saviors, just as humans. Stubborn, creative, impossible humans who refused to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. The alien princess had thought human warriors were only legends. She was wrong. They were so much more than that. They were real, they were dangerous, they were kind. They were contradictory and frustrating and absolutely, impossibly, wonderfully human. And the galaxy would never be the same again.